There is only one way I can even think about describing Ecclesiastes, and it's the same way I did in the title. It is beautifully frustrating. Ecclesiastes is emotionally and theologically strange. It feels pessimistic, contradictory, and unresolved. But I believe the frustration isn't an accident. It's intentional and it's the point. Ecclesiastes follows a preacher, a wise man, known as Qohleth, as the focal point. And it follows Qohleth as he details his life, his observations, which many of them are contradictory. But it's not only that. Qohleth deals with frustrating topics and never provides a final conclusion himself on any of them. That said, I believe part of the reason that Ecclesiastes is so beautiful and so misunderstood is in the very beginning, in the second verse. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. You read that, you may be like me. Currently, vanity means something similar to pridefulness, a useless pride, specifically. But that's not what it used to mean. The original word was something more akin to a mist, air, or vapor, something you can see, something that's there, but you can't grab a hold of, something that you can't physically obtain. And even with just that simple switch, the verse now reads, vapor of vapors, says the preacher. Vapor of vapor. All is vapor. All is mist. It all comes, it all goes, it's blown about by the wind, and no man can grasp it. It's not only that I found frustrating, it is also the nihilistic language used throughout the entire book. However, it's not frustrating because Kochlet's particularly wrong. It's frustrating instead because they are his observations, not statements. He says, what profit has a man for all his toil under the sun? One generation passes away and another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. The sun rises and also goes down. It hastens to the place where it arose. The wind goes toward the south and turns around to the north. The wind whirls around continually and comes again on its circuit. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. The place from where the rivers come, there they return again. He says, is there anything of which it may be said, see, this is new? It has already been in ancient times before us. There is no remembrance for former things, nor will there be for any things yet to come. Qohleth then goes on, using Solomon's namesake, to describe his search for fulfillment. He searched in the completion of grand works, in the accumulation of wealth and money, in the pursuit of women. He says, whatever his eyes desired, he did not withhold from his heart. And yet, after all this, he looked at the works he had done and decided it was all vapor, all vanity. I find Ecclesiastes to be one of the most realistic books in the Bible, not in the sense that it is technically more real, but in the sense that you could see more of this book alive in your day to day life because it consists primarily of observations, the same things that you and I will observe on a day to day basis. And it doesn't sugarcoat any of them. While Qohleth gives God his due and says what God has bent no man can straighten, he also says that he has observed God to be cruel, giving men the desire for wisdom and never allowing them to obtain that as an end. Just as the seas are never full, neither is the desire of man. He observes that wisdom exceeds folly as light exceeds darkness, and yet to the wise and the foolish, the same event happens to both: death. He says, for there is no more remembrance of the wise than of the fool forever, since all that now is will be forgotten in the days to come. And how does the wise man die? As the fool. While the wise man doesn't die foolish, he dies in the same way, in the same manner as the fool. And in typical biblical wisdom literature, it is taught that the wise, the righteous, will have prolonged lives, and the wicked and foolish will have their lives cut short. Qohleth has no problem calling out the fact that that does not align with his observations. He says that he sees the wicked live long lives, and he sees the righteous have their lives cut short. He advises those that will listen to not be overly righteous nor overly wise, for why should you destroy yourself? Additionally, do not be overly wicked nor be foolish, for why should you die before your time? But that is not the end of his frustrations. Remember, this is allegedly King Solomon. And yet in chapter 4, he talks about inequalities and the oppressed, saying that he returned and considered all of the oppression that is committed under the sun. And look, the tears of the oppressed, but they have no comforter. On the side of the oppressors there is power, but they have no comforter. Therefore I praised the dead, who were already dead, more than the living who are alive. Yet better than both is he who has never existed, who has not seen the evil work that is done under the sun. If you can read this book and come away unfazed, without frustration, without any sort of reflection, then I doubt there's anything I could say that would make you think about anything in general. While I've talked about frustrations, there's so much beauty that I haven't been able to mention. One of which is the fact that, similar to at least myself, Qohleth has issues. He has observations. He sees that the things in his life are not aligned with how a righteous world should perform. He then complains about those things or simply states his observations. Sometimes this is cut short and he moves to the next topic. And others, he turns back to God, instructing those listening to him to do the same. In chapter 7, he says, "In the day of prosperity, be joyful, but in the day of adversity, consider. Surely God has appointed one as well as the other, so that no man can find out what will come after him." If I haven't made it clear enough how blatant some of the contradictions and observations are, he says it is better to never have been born than to have been born and died, and it is considerably better to have never been born than to still be alive. But just a few chapters later, there's an interesting quote. "This is an evil, in all that is done under the sun, that one thing happens to all. Truly, the hearts of the sons of men are full of evil. Madness is in their hearts while they live, and after that they go to the dead. But for him who is joined to all the living there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living will know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten." I'm not sure how many more times I can repeat myself before I'm beating the dead horse or the dead lion. Regardless of whether Qohleth changes his mind in different parts of the account, or whether he is stating two truthful observations that are simply disjointed, it really does unravel a feeling of frustration but understanding. While I understand both cannot be true, it cannot be better to be dead or to have never existed and be better to be alive, there is some truth to both. And there are states of mind in which you can find yourself agreeing with each one. It's the understanding of the contradictory observations that makes this book so beautiful. And perhaps what I find the most intriguing, the most captivating in this book is the end. But one thing that's always bothered me are the people that believe there is no sense or no purpose in life, and then they go about life living in a contradictory manner. They're teaching people that there's no purpose in life, but there's no purpose in their teaching. And if they have fun doing it, that's one thing. Whatever. But I always find it intriguing to have that ideology and yet to teach it, saying nothing matters, but then truly caring to get that point across. And so there was a verse that really got me thinking. Chapter 12, verse 9 reads, "Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. All is vanity. And moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yes, he pondered and sought out and set in order many proverbs." Regardless of all being vanity, all being vapor, he still went about teaching his wisdom, teaching proverbs. It's the part of the book that I find the most absurd, but the most understandable. Unfortunately, I am almost out of coffee, so in the words of the frame narrator, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is a man's all. For God will consider every work, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. Thank you for watching.